Good evening, guys and girls, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to FFTV Premier League. We're having a Premier League top four chat with my colleague Deano from FFTV High Press. Hi, Deano. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm great. I'm looking forward to this, mate. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. We've kind
I've
of
changed
been,
my mind like 5 times, but you know.
yeah, exactly. Well, the structure. There's no structure as ever with my shows, but we're going to discuss about who we think is going to finish in the top four and a couple of honourable mentions, and then basically look at their pros and cons, what they've done in the transfer market so far this summer, what we see the kind of players that they're being linked to, and if we see a real challenge to the status quo, which is Man City at the moment. So to start off with, Deano. Uh, do you see anyone getting past Man City, or are they on a roll for their four in a row? Because whatever they do this season, could be a record-breaking season in terms of Premier League achievements. But is there anyone strong enough to really challenge them?
I don't think so this season, personally. And the only reason I say that is because, yes, they've lost Gundogan and Gundogan. I can never say that name. It's somebody picked me up on it and mention it. Gundogan, all right. But they've kind of got players that drop in there, and obviously Walker looks as though he's on his way out as well. But I wouldn't be worried if I'm a Man City fan, to be perfectly honest. I think anyone with Haaland in the side's got to be you've got to be looking at a title contender. Now, I don't believe Haaland will probably score as many as he did last year, because I think he took most of the teams by surprise, didn't he? Certainly the first half of the season. But yeah, I mean, I can't really see anybody past Man City, but mainly because a lot of people are in the rebuild stage. Certainly in the midfield areas, I've seen on when I've been doing stuff on my channel, there's been a lot of midfield shake-ups.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that it reminds me of Man U back in the day, where Ferguson would let these top players go. Remember when he let Jaap Stam go? Van der Sar was let go. There's a couple of players, and you think we're not going to recover from that, but there was always another player lined up, wasn't it? And that's probably the thinking from Man City. And I agree with you. I don't think it's anything to worry about, despite how good these players are. And we can add Mahrez to that list as well of players potentially going out. The argument would be from the chasing pack is if you look at Arsenal, yes, everyone says they bottled it, but they only lost the league by 2 more wins and they would have won that league. And if you look at the context of some of the defeats they had towards the end of the season, when the heads were down, I think the pressure that comes from Man City, they're like a runaway steam train at times, aren't they? When's the last time we remember, a team that can win 15, 16, 17, nearly 20 games in a row? It just doesn't happen until we've seen this Man City resurgence in the last few years. So from Arsenal's point of view, I don't think they're that far away, to be honest. And so far, of the top 4 teams, or certainly the top 4 that I've highlighted for next season, I think they've done the best business so far in the summer transfer window and have strengthened themselves. In that sense, I would say they're possibly stronger than Man City are finishing this as the team's finishing the season. I think Arsenal are in a strong position now, but that doesn't always play out on the pitch, does it? What do you think of the signings of Declan Rice? Do you think that's a key signing, and does that replace Partey, or is he a better player, or will he have to fill those boots quite quickly?
Well, I think from what you said about Arsenal bottling it or not bottling it, as we thought in the last part of the season, I think what was Arsenal's undoing was the fact that they didn't have the squad depth that Man City had. I mean, you mentioned Mahrez there. Mahrez, most of the season, played a second fiddle, didn't he? What a second fiddle to have sitting on the bench. And every week when you look at Man City's bench, it's like, wow, they would walk into most Premier League clubs. Whereas Arsenal didn't really have that depth, in my opinion. So I think that's what scuppered them in the end. Going on to your question about Rice, I did a video on Rice, sort of breaking down his play style, and he's very different than Partey. He sort of hangs to the left a bit more. I mean, Partey is your typical. It's almost like you put two blocks around him that he can't go either side. He's up and down. He's shuttler. He's like a shuttle up and down the pitch and a great ball winner. Whereas Declan Rice is a little bit different. Yes, he can tackle, but he can also dribble out a lot. But he does tend to dribble to the left. Now, I saw the friendly. I don't know if you saw the friendly against Man United the other night, but he was very much at the pivot of that DM position. And he had a very quiet game, in my opinion. So I do think that he'll take a little while to get going. He's at obviously a good age, but he's got a big price tag hanging around his neck as well, you know. But I don't know, you know, he's definitely a good addition, but then who's behind him? If Partey goes, which there's been strong rumours that he's going to go for the past few weeks, who you got behind him? You know,
who's the backup? Again, I think I agree. I think that they could have the same problem. You know, again, the squad depth. You can have a great first team, but you lose one of those players. And we saw the key games that they fell apart in last season, where when they lost Saliba, for example, in the defense, and they couldn't replace him. Games when they were without their midfielders, and they definitely didn't have a depth in squad. And maybe Declan Rice, is a great addition. But if again, like you say, if you haven't got the backup behind him, if he gets injured, or if he has a bad run of form, and you haven't got somebody to challenge him, they could be in the same position again. But it's interesting that you say that, because like I say, I've listened to a lot of forums, and a lot of Arsenal fans are really bigging up their chances for this coming season, purely based on that. But they think that they weren't that far off, and that they've improved with better players. But I think they'll find, exactly as you've said, that squad depth could be their undoing again this season, because when you get to the business end of the season, you need to pull out all the stops, don't you? And that's when Man City are at their strongest, you know. And you got to,
and 2 domestic cups, and you know, the European side of it as well. It is very difficult for teams to. There's a lot of minutes in a very high intensity league. I know people like me at my age hop back to the old days where we used to play X amount of games, but the games definitely, you know, they run more. You know, the running stats are unbelievable. Sometimes 12 kilometers, 13 kilometers in a match, which is ridiculous when you think about if you and I went out for a run, I'd be dead after half a kilometer.
And I'm done.
And these are all sprints, you know, most of the time. So it's more high intensity than it used to be, definitely. But there's still a crack inside. I mean, you know, Forest, he loves Arsenal, watching him play, because for the old school guys, that's the right way to play football. You know, and it's entertaining, and I think entertainment's gone a little bit out of it, apart from this recent tournament in America. And I'm sure they've been told to get the American fans interested, that just don't defend, just attack. I mean, there's been some ridiculous scores. There's a 4. I have seen some.
There's been some crazy scorelines. You're right, and it seems to be like just be as entertaining as you can. Don't worry about defending. But it's good for the fans, and it's good for the fan bases around the world. And you know, they get this one opportunity every summer, whether you're in the US or whether you're in the Far East, and they get the chance to see these heroes of theirs. And you kind of got to put on the show, don't you? You know, you're going all that way, and they've paid all that money. You want to kind of put on the show. But so going back to our list of top 4, so I've gone with Man City and Arsenal so far. Who would you go with as your next team to add into the potential top 4 for next season?
I would go with Manchester United, and I'm saying that because I really rate Ten Hag. You know, from the minute that Ronaldo, great player though he is, left the club, that really showed a start of a turnaround for me, because having Ronaldo in the side kind of upset the balance, in my opinion. And I believe, and I'm going to get knocked by probably some Liverpool fans here, that they're the best counter-attacking side in the league, both when they're low block and both when they're mid block. So when they pick up the ball, they move like lightning, and they've got some lightning players. But I think they're making good additions to the squad. I think Mount's a decent addition for the money compared to Rice.
Agreed.
I've been tracking this kid Højlund, the Danish kid from Højlund. He's from Atalanta. He's a cracking player, and his value. I mean, there's some discrepancy with the value, but he is their main striker target now.
Yeah,
because you can't. Again, they're going to struggle like Arsenal were with a lack of backup. So if you look at who's the forward for Manchester United, keeps getting injured. Martial. Martial is in Manchester United a bit of a joke. He's a bit of a sick note. He's has a lot of injuries, and there's no real backup from that because you don't really want to be moving Rashford in from the left because that's where he's most effective. So really, they need a proper striker, and this dude is a proper striker. I mean, he's a proper target man. He's fast. He's 6'3", I think.
Considering they had Weghorst as their backup last season, but it's anything's an upgrade.
It's a terrible signing for their counter-attacking style for me because he just holds the ball up, and that's where counter-attacks go wrong. For counter-attacks to go really right, you've got to have some fast players, and they have them in abundance up front. And whenever they get the ball, you just see them sprinting and often overwhelming opponents. From conceding a corner and getting the ball back to having 4-on-3 at the on a counter attack. So I think that sets them in good stead away next year. Certainly if they get Højlund, and I think if they do get a good striker, I think they're looking pretty good. They're looking at moving Fred and McTominay out as well and upgrading that position. But again, United all depends on the takeover, the Glazers selling. Because if they don't sell, there's not going to be that much money around for another signing after Højlund.
100%. We've been very cagey, obviously, because of this potential takeover. Because you're not going to spend too much on assets when you're literally trying to sell the club. Reports earlier on today that they've definitely pulled out of any interest for Harry Kane, and looks like they are going to focus their ambitions on getting Højlund into the team. What do you reckon to that? Do you think they should potentially pay the money, because what Harry Kane is something special? He's not. You're not going to. Not every team's going to get the opportunity. You're not going to get the opportunity to buy him very often, and this might be the only opportunity they get. He's a player that I think is ready to start winning some titles, and I don't think he wants to leave the Premier League ideally. But if Man U were interested, do you think he's the right fit for their team in terms of, you just talked about how they play with a counter-attack. Yes, he's not the paciest player, but he's a goal-scoring machine, and you're guaranteed 25 to 30 goals from a player like that. Could he be the missing link? Could he make that much of a difference?
If I didn't know his goal-scoring record, I would say probably not, because he's like that false nine type player, isn't he, to hold play up. But he's just like you say, he's guaranteed goals every single season. And whenever you look at him, you think, I don't know. Personally, I just think he's not outstanding, but he's just a goal machine, like you say. His finishing's unbelievable, absolutely incredible. But I don't think they can afford him because they'll have no money left to buy anybody else, in my opinion. Now, if they had Saudi money, they'd probably buy him. If they had Saudi owners, so rich oil owners, they would probably buy him. And, that would make him a real force. But I think they'll do well anyway if they get this Højlund. But they are, I think there might be another one that falls away towards the end of the season if they get a good run in. Because of the lack of bodies they've got in reserve. Quality bodies
again,
in reserve.
It depends how far you get in your cup tournaments, and the further you get, obviously, the more pressure it is on your first team players. And like Man U have done, like many clubs have done, and what we're kind of probably going to start doing now as well. You play the League Cup games with a weakened team. You don't play your first team, and Man United's youth players or the B side, as if you want to call it, are obviously strong enough to beat most teams getting through the early rounds of League Cups and maybe even FA Cup. But when it gets to the business end, you're going to need your prime players playing in almost every single game. And we saw with last season how Man City to be fair, Haaland played pretty much every game. It wasn't unless he was injured that he was left out of a team. He actually refused to be left out at times when we heard from Pep Guardiola talking about it. But yeah, you need key players ready at that business end of the season. So you've gone with Man U to add to that top four. My next team for the top four would be Liverpool. Again, I think they've made some good recruitment, especially in the midfield. They're starting to sort out that midfield. They may have bought one too many midfielders, and there might be some real competition in that area for them. But that's what a manager wants, doesn't he? He wants the best players competing for the positions. Another one for me is Darwin Núñez from them. I think this season is going to be a big season for him, and if he's played as the striker, maybe even out on the left drifting in, I think he's if you give him more game time, and with Klopp likes to bed his players in, especially the younger ones, and I think this season could be a big season for Darwin Núñez, and from that point of view, and the extra players, the added midfielders that they've brought into their ranks, I really see Liverpool as a strong challenger this season, certainly for the top four, maybe even pushing slightly higher. How do you see their business so far this transfer window, Dino?
Well, I think I think the business is good, and they've not finished yet. I think they'll probably nick Romeo Lavia from Southampton, who's been sort of courted by, a lot of the top sort of 4 or 5 clubs in the league. He's a cracking player, and he's kind of just what they need at a good age as well. So that'll add to obviously McAllister, who, I know you're running a fantasy Premier League. He was scoring me points galore last season. Yeah, he's a great player, and he's got, everybody sees him as a creative player, but he's got a tackle in him as well. So I think they've kind of upgraded. They've obviously shipped a lot out Liverpool, certainly around the midfield area, and Hendo's going, and they've got finally Milner's moved on finally. But you look at their new midfield, which will take a little time to bed in. It's a bit like Rice at Arsenal. I think it will take a little bit of time to bed in. I mean, going back to Arsenal, Arteta says give them 55 games together, so that kind of wipes out the season, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but
I mean, players like Szoboszlai, who's
Szoboszlai's lots of energy, fantastic midfield they've got now, and I think what happened with Klopp is he changed the tactics to fit the players last season, sort of part way through, and that's where the demise started. And I think he's realised that, and kind of going back to where it was before. Yeah, I mean, they've got quality outfit on the Liverpool, and a decent bench as well. So yes, I also have them in the top 4.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of talk last season about the 7-year itch for Klopp and how that ends up. And, I think it was a rebuilding season for them last season. Apart from, obviously, the challenge that Arsenal gave to Man City, Liverpool were nowhere near it, nowhere near that top 4, and didn't deserve to be either. But to be fair, I think they're getting their house in order. They're in the Europa League, aren't they, this season? So slightly different European challenge for them, but certainly one that they could definitely attack and get something out of it. And it's a trophy at the end of the day, and I think we're more than capable of going deep into that competition and maybe even winning that competition. But they have got players that I think they've added to their squad. I think they've already got a decent defense, and I think it was the midfield was the biggest problem last season, and I think most Liverpool fans that I've spoken to as well will say the same thing. So maybe they've got it right, or it's getting it right. But there's certain players
for us this year is Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Exactly,
moving position, because he was very weak. He's weak in the tackle, isn't he? Incredibly weak in the tackle, but getting him further up the pitch has been a masterstroke, really, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there's
interesting to see how he does this season.
100%. There's not many players in the Premier League, whatever position they're playing, but I've got his range of passing, and we saw in the England. I don't know if it were friendlies or they were tournament games, but he was fantastic, and he really stood out in terms of the way he dictated that midfield as well, and he absolutely ran the show for England. So if you can do that for England at an international stage, you can certainly do that for Liverpool. And he's a player that obviously missed a lot of football last season as well. I remember when they came to the City ground, he didn't come on till quite late in the second half, and by that stage, you could see the impact he did make, even with his early crosses. But he's a player that I think can really turn the screw on. Is certainly one of my first picks on my fantasy Premier League team as well. So I'm sure a few guys have got him in. But certainly, I see Liverpool.
I'm not telling you. Secret.
You're not telling me yet. Okay, we will share our teams at some point and have a discussion about FPL. So the top four, as we've got it, and are we in unison on this one? Then
not quite in the order.
Not quite in that order, no. Okay, but the teams involved, we're going for Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man U to finish in our top four. And I think we're on consensus on that. You said there's a couple of teams that you would give honourable mentions to that could possibly pose a bit of a challenge as well. Go ahead, Deano. Who else do you think could be involved in that top four race?
I think Chelsea.
Okay.
And that's crazy, really, because they've literally let go. I mean, this involves some of the younger players as well in the 23s, but they've let 27 players go out this transfer window. So since the end of last season, but they've signed some good players, and Cuckoo, great finisher, left and right foot. The young Nicholas Jackson, who looks like he takes one touch too many, but obviously if Poch can blood that out of him, he'll be a good player. Kendi Paez, good, decent attacking midfielder. They're choosing quite well in their strategy, but I think it's that Poch effect. I think he's definitely wanting to go with a smaller squad, and he's gone out and said, I want a smaller squad because I want to give everybody the chance, and I think the smaller squad helps you bond a bit. And it definitely seen a change in formation in the friendlies, which looks like it suits them. So
yeah.
I think they'll. I don't think they'll have a bad season like they did last season, but I don't think they'll be gelled enough to make the top four. But I think they'll be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I mean, Pochettino, there's no doubt in that I think he'll have a massive effect. I think he'll get a tune out of that squad as well. I think possibly. I think they'll possibly get into the top 7, but bearing in mind where they finished last season, that's a massive improvement. If they get into the European places. But I do agree that there is a chance that if anyone can get a tune out of those players, it'll be Poch. And I think he's said all the right things so far to certainly endear himself to the Chelsea fans, but make sure that the Tottenham fans don't ever want him back again, because he's been bigging up Chelsea in a way, saying they're one of the most successful team in London in the last 15 years and things like that. And it's certainly stirring the pot, isn't he? But his loyalty should only be to who he's working for at the time. And we can't be too sentimental, and certainly Spurs fans can't be. But I think that's a decent shout. A team that I put in, and go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, don't forget Tuchel, Potter, and Lampard in quick succession. Yeah, that didn't help their season last season.
No, and you're right. I mean, they've shipped out a lot of. They've managed to get rid of a lot of the excess baggage that they had from last season, and somehow or another they've managed to sort that out. But we'll get into that in maybe a different video, because I'm not 100% sure. Who's your wild card? Yeah, that wasn't all above board as far as I'm concerned, but that's just my opinion on it. I really like the look of Arsenal, because I think they've signed one of the best, or he's certainly gone under the radar, but people know how good he is. But for me, Sandro Tonali from Italy is one of the best midfielders in world football, and I was shocked that
you said Arsenal there.
Did I say no? I meant Newcastle.
Newcastle, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, Newcastle signing of Tonali. I think he's one of the best midfielders in world football. Genuinely is, and the only thing I think will be far from it is first time in Europe for many a season, and that might be the only thing that stops them making a real challenge for the top 4 again. I think they will be just outside the top 4, but they've signed some fantastic players, and if they can keep their key players fit, again, it's a squad game like you mentioned, but you need a bit of luck as well with injuries, and if they can keep Callum Wilson fit, for example, who seems to be in and out of the team all the time, and even though you've got someone like Alexander Isak to come in, I think they play really well with Callum as their front line striker, and with support from the players around him. I also think Harvey Barnes was a fantastic signing for them.
Yeah, same.
I think he's
Which
an
means the
upgrade
demise of St. Maximan, but
yeah, but I think he's certainly, I think he's an upgrade. I think he got the most goals of a midfielder outside the top.
He's got a lot. He had 13 goals or something from the left-hand side
season in a relegated team. You know, I think he's a quality player, and I think they're getting him age-wise probably just as he's about to hit the peak of his career. So there's some.
He missed 3 more, didn't he, against Forest?
Yeah, thank God for that. You know, thank God he didn't have his shooting boots on that day, because we could have been dead and buried by half time in that game. We certainly rode our luck, but yeah, definitely a quality player, and one that I like the look of, and I think he's gone to the right place, to be honest. I think Eddie Howe's a fantastic manager as well, and I think
he is fantastic. I've also got Newcastle as a wild card as well.
Yeah, I think they've got their leg
unit, aren't they?
Yeah, and you can see him sticking around there for a few years, can't you? You can see he's almost like their legacy manager. You can't see him really being moved on. If he keeps progressing year on year the way he has been, the owners can't have any complaints, that's for sure. And I think he will improve. So yeah, guys, you've heard our opinions. If you think your top 4 is any different, or if there's any teams that you think we've missed out, please drop them in the comments below. But we're going to carry on this series, and we'll move down the league, and we'll do them in sections. And I'll have my main man Deano here, and please check out the FFTV High Press. He's done some amazing videos, looking at the stats and comparing players, doing heads up. Deano, tell them a little bit more about the FFTV High Press channel, please.
Yeah, it's more, well, in the transfer window, it's more the analytical side. So it's transfer news plus player versus player. So if a player's coming into a club, I'll compare them in terms of stats to the existing player that they're probably going to take the place of. And that includes video footage and analysis, the sort of stuff you get on sort of Sky Sports, but on a budget. And then we're going to be getting some fan engagement at the end of the window, some fan channel engagement at the end of the window about how they thought the window was, and then some other stuff within the season. So yeah, we're working quite closely together with FFTV Premier League to produce as good a content as we can for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so guys, definitely check it out, because there's some amazing content on there. There's some really in-depth analysis on certain players, and if you want the news as soon as a player has been announced, make sure you hit the notifications button on the channel as well, because the guy's prolific at the moment, so you'll get like 2 or 3 videos out a day at the moment, aren't you, Deano? So yeah, keep going, mate. And guys, please support it, and make sure you put a like and a comment. Hit a like, and make sure you put a comment in the comment section as well. Do the same here as well, guys. I know I'm sure you're all following the main FFTV channel, but if you're not, please make sure you subscribe to that as well. We'll be putting out content as regularly as possible. So again, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you hit the notifications bell as well, and you'll know as soon as we put anything new out. But thank you for sticking with us. I hope you enjoyed the show. Leave your comments in the section below, and come on, you Reds.
Come on, you Reds.